Okay, let's chat about assembling your rack once you've got it out of the packaging. Now you'll notice we use a lot of these things, which are cable ties for the packaging, and to get it out of the packaging it's a bit of a mission. So what we suggest is you get yourself one of these, which is a little wire cutter, and you'll notice how easy it is to clip your way out of getting rid of all of these horrible cable ties. Okay, so get yourself one of those. If you have one, great, but it's an easy way to get all the cable ties off your rack and get it unpackaged, etc. So once it's unpackaged, you will notice that the heavier part is the base and the upright, and then you also get a extension bar, which is whatever the one that's selected for your vehicle. Some are longer, some are shorter. So starting with this, it's loose, so we don't tighten it for the simple reason that you need to put your extension into this part of the rack. So let's have a look. First things first, we pre-tension the clamp. So put the clamp on and pull it back and click it in. Now when we say we pre-tensioned it, they're all pre-tensioned to 70 millimeters from the back of this to the front there. So if I take a tape measure and I do that, you'll see that at 70 millimeters or 7 centimeters, that's the length that we use. You can tweak it when you've got the rack on, so you can make it a little tighter or less tight, but ultimately you don't want it too tight. The preset tension is probably fine. You might find though that you'll want to give it a little bit more tension. It's pressing up against a rubber mount inside here. You don't want to compress that rubber mount too much, but that holds this thing very sturdy on the rack. Okay, so leave that clicked into place, and let's have a look at what the rack looks like. So you'll notice that these bottom ones are loose, and you'll notice two plates inside here. There's two plates inside here. Let's look at the other side. If we look at the other side, you will notice that there are two plates on either side of this here. They're the spacer plates for the inside swivel, because there's Teflon inside for the swivel of the upright, and these are spacer plates that replace the Teflon. So you're going to remove these bolts, and you're going to remove those. Now your extension, this extension has a T on the back, and this is where you connect your license plate holder and light holder onto the back. Now there's a couple of things. First of all, if you install it on the down position, it gives you a little less ground clearance on the bottom of the vehicle from the ground upwards, but we've done that for when you have trail bikes or very long wheelbase bikes. Some of the e-bikes that are trail with long suspension, they tend to obscure the license plate with the rear tires. For normal bikes, you can turn it the other way up, this way, which gives you more ground clearance. And if you bang it on the ground, the only bottom of it is this heavy steel that bangs it on. Very, very strong. You can almost rest the entire vehicle on it or jack the vehicle up with that. So you just need to make that decision. Have you got cross-country bikes, or do you have very long trail bikes? It's whichever way you put it into the rack. So obviously this is the front, or this is the rear, and this is towards the vehicle. So this part is towards the vehicle. Your vehicle will be here. So obviously the license plate has to go on that side. So you're gonna put it in that way. So the T is away from the clip, or shall we say the latch. Okay, so that you want to insert it in, fine, for the longer travel. So we put it in there. We have to have a plate on either side. Okay. So the easiest way to do this is to pull this over the edge of the table, wherever you're doing it, so that this is free. So again, your long side is going towards your latch to the vehicle. This is the in part that inserts into the vehicle. So let's look at that. I said this is going to be down to give me trail bike clearance. and I've got 2 of these guys. So what I'm going to do is just hold it on there for a bit, put that in there. Okay, so we've now got that installed. Now, what we do need to do is tighten all of these bolts. So you'll notice another 50mm insert here, and obviously this one. They're the strength of the entire rack in terms of its stiffness. So these 3 bolts to tighten this, and those 3 bolts to tighten that on. These 6 bolts you do quite high torque, so you really need to tighten them up tight. I'll list the torque if you do have a torque wrench, but ultimately you want to take a spanner and a ratchet and you want to tighten them as tight as you can do them. They are high tensile steel bolts. They can resist quite a bit. You're not going to be able to strip the thread or anything on them. So let's go ahead and I won't bore you with the whole process, but we'll tighten up. So basically what I do is use these are 19mm socket and spanner. So these are what we call 12mm bolts. They take a 19 spanner, and these 3 here are 16mm bolts. They take a 24. So first let's tighten these up. So basically put your ratchet on in tighten mode and tighten these bolts up. And when you get them all evenly tight, away you go. Okay. The 16mm, there's 3. 2 of them, these 2 are used for the rubber mount. So if you look inside here, you'll see there's a piece of rubber in there. Okay. You do not need to tighten this very much. It's simply an axle to ensure that that it hits up against the rubber. You don't want to crush this tight. You just want to marginally tighten that one, and the same with the top one. There's the same rubber at the top, which clips against which basically creates the pressure against the lever or the clip. So these 2, don't tighten them too tight. This one is your pivot, it's got Teflon hinges inside, and so basically this you need to tighten, but obviously not too tight, because you're going to try and crush the center of the plate. It is 5mm plate, it's thick, but you can still, if you put enough pressure on it, you can still bend the plate slightly. If you bend that plate slightly in, you're going to prevent this from pivoting. So fairly tight, but not too tight. Not very tight, super tight. Okay? So these 6 bolts, super tight. This one, fairly tight. These 2, not so tight. They house the rubber. That is your hinge. These are your compression screws to ensure that the whole thing is super stiff. Let me repeat that. These 12mm bolts, all 6 of them, need to be tightened down really hard. Your pivot, not too hard. Your outer ones, not at all, just slightly. They've all got lock nuts on them, so they can't really come off. Okay, let's move to, once we've done this, and show you how to then proceed with the rest of the rack. Okay, the vehicle we're going to install it on already has a 50mm receiver system on it. So we're going to remove the pin from it. Pull the pin out, the little latch thing, and then we're going to pull this pin out like that. Put those down on the ground there. So now you have a 50mm insert with a hole on the side, which correlates with the hole that we're going to put in here, and then shove the rack in. So let's have a look at how we do that. Okay, so I simply do this, pick it up, put it into the hole, and put it in a slight angle, lift it up, and then slide it in. Okay, and then I'm going to put the pin in. Put in the pin, put the little clip back in. Okay, now we don't have to do this now, but this basically goes up against your thing over there, and then we tighten it. I'll show you in close up now. Once you've inserted the rack and the pin is in, then you slide this up, right up against that up there. Make sure that this is over the lip, and this little thing is pointing back, and then you basically take a 19 spanner and you tighten this up really tight so there's no wobble or movement on this. You'll notice there's a bit of movement on it now. You can move it. Once you've tightened that up, there's no movement. Okay, this is an old rack, so I've pre-assembled the top, and you'll notice that it comes in a bar, this bar, and there's two of these plates. So obviously those plates are on either side, like that. There's one on the other side. It's basically just two bolts that go through. Always remember your washers, and you'll notice on the cages we use a broad washer at the bottom. That will be shipped with it. There's one little washer inside there that is thinner. You can see that, and the others are all broad. The thinner one is there because you can't put that in there. It doesn't fit in there without it. So the broad is just to spread the load to ensure that you don't bend the tubing. There's another video that shows you all the different options on the top here. I'll show you quickly. So the rack has a number of options in terms of how the holes work. I'll show you in a video at the end of this as to all the different options you have based on the bikes that you can put on. So something to remember here is you'll notice that the right hand side is shorter than the left hand side. Okay, so you always, when you have a look at the holes that are in here, you'll notice that immediately that they're a little shifted over to the one side. The reason for that is the bicycle lies to the left like that, and then the middle of the bike hangs in that. So they're all a little bit over. You need a little bit extra on the left, and you need less on the right. It's just kind of how it works. The bottom, which you see here, is identical length because the bikes lie perfectly and straight. But obviously the tops of the bikes, because the wheels are at 45, there's a little bit of overhang to the left, and that's why this side is longer than the right hand side. And the racks, the curve always to the left. So long side left, LL, long side left, curves always to the left. That's how we load the bikes. So when you load a bike, you've seen pictures, probably videos of it. You go to the right hand side of the bike, you grab the fork in one hand with your right hand, you grab the seat stay with your left hand, you pick it up and you push the wheel into it at an angle, and you let the bike drop back onto the bottom bar. So what I've done is I've pre-assembled it. This is what you need to do. I don't need a long video on showing you how to do bolts and things. It's pretty self-explanatory. Just make sure left side is long, LL, left side longy, and your rack's always to the left like that. Okay, you set that up, and then there's nothing that you need to assemble for it. And you'll notice that this you'll see when you look at it, on the bottom side it's got a reinforcement, on the top side it's flush like that. When you put it on the vehicle, these gaps are always at the bottom and this is at the top. So that's the way it goes on the vehicle, bottom, and this is on the top. So let's carry on and put it onto the vehicle. Really not rocket science. I'm going to take this is the 4-bar, and I'm going to basically put it onto the top of the rack with the rack standing in there, drop it down, and it'll fall perfectly in place, and you just simply push your bolts through and then tighten the bolts at the back, and your rack is now basically on there. You just got to do the bottom ones. So your bottom one, remember, these are at the top, and this bigger section is down beneath. There are 2 holes there. Slide that over, put your bolts through. Remember your washers. Okay, tighten the bolts on the back, not too tight, but enough, and your rack is assembled. There's one last thing we need to do, which is the license plate. Okay, you'll notice a little key that we've created. It's got a little lock on the side. So basically it fits in here. And this is a safety device to ensure that if your latch at the back that comes loose, the rack will not drop back at all. Very, very heavy grade 16mm high tensile steel. So very little chance of bending or breaking. So basically we shove that through. You'll feel that this thing is under a bit of tension because we use that to ensure that and you can see the key, you push it in there and it drop it down, and the tension keeps the key from coming up and rattling its way out of that little thing, and that just prevents it from coming out. Very simple. We did it this way so you don't lose. If you put pins on the other side, you're going to lose the pins, etc. So this is a really simple way of doing it, and you also don't lose your key. So it has a dual purpose, the bungee. So that prevents it. So if you do release the back, then this thing will hit up against there. It's impossible for it to come out. Okay, and this is basically there to tension it nicely against here to make sure that the upright is good and sturdy and steady. The rubber preventing any rattle, etc. Okay, so we're going to install the license plate now. I've got a license plate holder that hasn't been fully assembled, but this is the frame that fits. So normally the lights go in, and you'll see it when you undo it. And it's got a little cable on it with a plug for the thing, and obviously your number plate goes in here. So you just take, these are short little bolts, and all that you want to do, put those short bolts through here. That hole there is where your wire goes through. And then you take those bolts, and basically that fits in there like that. Okay, very simple, and you tighten that up. Now when you have the cable, we suggest that you take the cable, and you'll see the plug is on this side of the vehicle, but take the cable and just wrap it over the top of the bar and then plug it in. If you let it hang out, it can probably snag something, so just make sure that it's clear of the bar and on top of the bar, and put it there so you don't have a lot of cable hanging around. There's plenty of cable for different vehicles with recessed plugs, etc. So that's kind of it. You just need to attach that, and that's your rack assembled. Okay, so let's have a look at how you position your rack on the top bar. So what we've done here, let's have a closer look. What we've done is we've created the standard, which is the two center holes on the plate. And then you can see these two cuts that I did to indicate that this is the pivot for that hole and that hole, which allows you to turn this rack, or the wheel cage as we call it, to the right or left. So in some cases, if you have a gravel bike with, say, like long bars, like these cow horn bars or whatever, you might want to angle this out a little bit to get them away from the other bikes, because you might have some interference. Generally with normal mountain bikes, there's no interference. This suffices. There's been a few occasions where I've had to use the ability to turn it to left or right. The other option is that you can use these two holes here. In other words, put them in, and the rack, this whole cage is forward, and then you can use the next one in again, so that it just staggers the racks. If you are having issues with small frames and big frames, and your handlebars touching the frame of the other, it seldom happens. But what this allows you to do is to set up your rack custom fit for all the different bikes that you might have. So yeah, if you've got a set of 4 bikes, you go on holiday and you know how they're all supposed to go on, you can set you can set it up as however you need to set it up. Generally, I mean, on our gravel grinder tours, we leave this as standard, and we actually never really have an issue. Here and there, we might have 2 bikes that are very small frames. They might touch, and then we just opt out to sort of move them away from each other, and that solves the problem. So yeah, you have some options with the top bar, with the wheel cage, sorry. when connecting it to the top bar.